What is a serial killer, and how do they successfully kill in one of America's busiest cities? When you think of New York City, you think tall buildings, incredible food, the subway. You certainly don't consider it a landscape for rape and serial murder. In the 1960s, New York City was a completely different setting. Prostitution and drug use were rampant in most areas of Manhattan, and the increase in assault and missing persons cases had the city in a constant state of sheer panic. Today we're going to discuss Richard Francis Cottingham, an American serial killer who's feared to have mutilated and slaughtered 100 women and killed 11 confirmed victims. Sit back as we dive into the mind of the Times Square killer.
Investigation Hour. Viewer discretion is advised.
Born in Bronx, New York, Richard Cottingham was one of 3 children and had what most would call a typical upbringing. His father worked for an insurance group and his mother a homemaker. They would transition to a suburb in New Jersey when Richard was 12 years old, and he would struggle to make friends at his new school. He would eventually find an interest in computing and landed a job at Metropolitan Life, where his dad was vice president. Shortly thereafter, in 1966, he was employed as a computer operator for Blue Cross Blue Shield and would work there all the way to his arrest in 1980. He was married and had 3 children with his wife, Janet, and would commute to and from Manhattan daily from Lodi, New Jersey. This rigorous commute inspired Richard to get an additional apartment in Midtown, working hard to justify it to his wife, but only causing a strain on their fragile marriage. At this point, Richard had only 2 minor offenses on his record, one for drunk driving and another for shoplifting. In 1973, things escalated. He was charged with robbery, sexual assault, and sodomy in New York, more than likely with a Times Square sex worker. This case was dismissed and things carried on. In 1967, Richard would strike and make his first kill. The unfortunate victim was Nancy Vogel. She went missing and was last seen on her way to play bingo at church. 3 days later, she's found nude, strangled to death near Ridgefield Park in her own vehicle.
It was a game to me. It was mainly psychological. I was able to get almost any woman to do whatever I wanted them to do. It's godlike, almost. You were in complete control of somebody's destiny. I never thought I would get caught.
Richard, whose habits included dismembering his victims, also garnered the moniker the Torso Killer in the media over the years. He admitted to luring 2 women into a hotel room by threatening them and playing mind games. He then raped and tied them up during the night to keep them from leaving the hotel room. He also admitted to drowning them both in the hotel bathtub and dumped their bodies in Montvale Woods, where they were eventually discovered. One detective remarked about how the crime scene was the cleanest he'd ever seen. No prints or blood splatter to be found, and the victim's clothing was neatly folded inside the bathtub. More than 10 years later, on May 5th, 1980, another sex worker is found dead in a motel room. She'd been beaten, strangled, and stuffed under a bed. Richard had partially bitten off one of her nipples, almost severing one completely. They would later link this murder to an earlier murder that took place in that same motel. 10 days later, on May 15th, Jean Rayner is found with her throat slit, breasts hacked off, and body set ablaze. Some firefighters recount the smell of charred human flesh and furniture burning, causing billows of smoke. I couldn't imagine being a first responder on that scene. This happened at the Seville Hotel in Manhattan. The sense of fear and paranoia hotel personnel must have had during his killing years must have been just terrifying. Only 1 week later, while senses are still heightened, a Quality Inn hotel worker in Hasbrook Heights, New Jersey, hears crying and moaning coming from one of the rooms. The cries were from Leslie Ann Odell, an 18-year-old sex worker who was working the corner of Lexington and 25th Street, May 22, 1980. She agreed to have sex with Richard for $100. They arrive to the hotel, and Richard offers to give her a massage. She rolls over onto her stomach, and he begins to wield a knife and hold it to her throat. He then secures a set of handcuffs on Leslie to keep her from thrashing around. While still bound and gagged, Leslie hears the knock on the door from the Quality Inn worker and signals that she's in duress. The police arrive and catch Richard while trying to evade the scene. In his possession are a cache of handcuffs, sedatives, and duct tape. Bergen County investigators later started noticing a string of similar open sexual assault cases in Times Square that fit Richard's hallmarks. After a warrant was issued on his New Jersey-based home, a torrent of evidence was swiftly revealed. Trophies and personal items were said to have been collected and used as evidence in court, including his victim Mary Ann Carr's apartment key and a necklace belonging to Jean Rayner. These items contained Richard's fingerprints, which would ultimately decide his fate during his trial. Richard Cottingham was sentenced to 172 to 197 years in Trenton's New Jersey State Prison. In 2017, Jennifer Weiss befriends Richard in prison, writing letter after letter, with some letters including emoji stickers to catch his attention. She arrives to get on his good side and starts to exchange messages back and forth. Her mother, Dita Godarzi, was found dead in a Times Square motel in 1979, having been set on fire with her hands and head missing. As strange as the following may sound, she develops a friendship with Richard and has visited him over 30 times in prison.
I just don't know what to say to you, or how to say it. I can only tell you what's in my heart, and pray that you believe me. I am truly and deeply sorry, so very sorry, for all the pain I have brought into your life.
2 months after this letter, Weiss visits Richard for the first time face to face. "I knew what I wanted, and I made it abundantly clear," said Weiss. "I'm giving you my friendship for details of the crimes." The first visit was through thick glass, and as time went on, the visits were in rooms where Richard could shake hands with Jennifer, or even hug. "He cared about himself and his needs," said Weiss. "He wanted to get over on people. He wanted to win. He wanted to cheat. He wanted to steal. He just wanted to thrash through every day and think he was in charge of his own life." Weiss's mission was to, at any cost, discover where Richard had buried her mother's head. He later shared it was at the base of the George Washington Bridge. Investigators have yet to find the skull at that site. "The magnitude of what he did is unfathomable," said Weiss. "But I became friends with Richard for my mother's sake and for my quest." Weiss continues her visitations with Richard till this day. "I'm doing this for the mothers who lost their daughters and my own mother, and for these girls that their lives were ended one night or day by Richard playing God," said Weiss. "I'm not going to rest easy until we figure out who they were, so that's why I do what I do." Would you have the courage to face a killer? Thanks for listening. If you're into solved and unsolved crimes and strange mysteries, subscribe to us so you don't miss out on our weekly videos released every Monday at 2 p.m. Pacific Time. If you enjoyed this video, give us a like. It would really help us out.